There are space marines, and then there are the Carcharodons, ghosts in gray armor who drift through the void like silent predators, leaving nothing behind but ruin, silence, and the faint aftertaste of fear. They are whispered about more than they are seen. They are remembered more through the devastation they leave than through any physical record. And the galaxy, already drowning in nightmares, speaks their name only with a cautious, trembling respect. The Carcharodons do not arrive to save, they arrive when fate itself has given up. Yet the Carcharodons are not feared because of what they do, but because of what has been done to them. Their curse begins not with a single tragedy, but with the slow erosion of identity, the quiet suffocation of everything that makes a warrior human. Imagine being born into darkness, raised in silence, shaped by battlefields where the only language spoken is violence. Imagine a life where memory is a burden, names are unnecessary, and emotion is a weakness to be scraped away like rust. This is the existence carved into the marrow of every Carcharodon. From the moment they take the gene seed, everything familiar begins to die. Their home world is unknown. Their culture vanished. Their past erased so completely that even they cannot reclaim it. The Imperium calls them Astartes, but in truth, they are something far older, far stranger, and far more broken. A legion lost in time, drifting like a wound that never healed. And in that darkness, within those oceans of silence, something ancient beats inside them. A hunger, a violence so deeply rooted it does not feel learned, but inherited. It is the curse that trails every Carcharodon like a shadow, whispering to them that they are not simply warriors, they are predators made for a galaxy drenched in blood. When a Carcharodon speaks, which is rarely, it is said their voice carries the chill of a forgotten void, a reminder that they belong more to the cold emptiness between stars than to any world of men. Their appearance brings a palpable change in the air, as though reality itself tightens. Civilians avoid their gaze. Soldiers look away. Even other space marines feel it, the uncanny wrongness that clings to these gray killers. But to understand why they are feared, you must first understand what they have lost. The Imperium has forgotten their origins. The galaxy has buried their past. Yet the Carcharodons themselves know the truth. The curse that grips them is not a punishment. It is a purpose, a reminder that they are the last remnants of something the Emperor tried to hide, a legacy that refuses to die. Every Carcharodon enters the wars of the 41st millennium with the same unspoken question seared into their minds. What am I? And because they have no answer, they fight. They fight until their armor cracks, until their bones splinter, until their silence is drowned in the roar of chainswords and torn flesh. They fight because the curse demands it. They fight because something within them whispers that they are not meant to live peacefully. They are meant to tear, to destroy, to survive in the deepest black where no light ever shines. This is the Carcharodon's curse, not death, but the unbearable weight of endless existence. A life without origin, a purpose without clarity, a war without end. And as this story begins, you must ask yourself one thing. If a warrior forgets everything that once made him human, does he still remain a protector? Or has he already become the very monster the galaxy fears? Before we dive deeper into the cursed existence of the Carcharodons, there's something you should know. This story becomes far darker, far more unsettling, and far more revealing the deeper we go. And if you stay until the end, you'll learn the one truth about the Carcharodons that even the Imperium fears to speak aloud, a secret that explains why these warriors are both humanity's protectors and its potential doom. But to understand the present, you must first understand the silence they were born into. The Carcharodons do not live among the stars the way other Astartes do. They drift beyond the map, farther than charted space, in regions so empty that even the void seems to whisper. Out there, in the great nothingness, they sharpen themselves against isolation. No allies, no civilization, no reminders of humanity, only the cold hum of warships that have forgotten their own age and the low heartbeat of warriors who have forgotten their past. Isolation is not their burden, it is their environment. Their crucible. their shaping force. The Imperium calls it the outer dark, a place so barren of life that most maps simply fade into blankness at its edge. But for the Carcharodons, it is home. A drifting wilderness where silence becomes a language and violence becomes a form of meditation. They do not return to planets. They do not build monuments. They do not celebrate victories. Instead, they glide through the void like predators too ancient to rest, waiting for the faintest tremor of distress from the Imperium. And when that call comes, when a planet screams loud enough for even the outer dark to hear, the Carcharodons descend with a fury that feels less like salvation and more like nature itself awakening in blood. Their exile has shaped them into something the galaxy struggles to understand. The isolation strips away hesitation. It strips away doubt. It strips away everything that makes most warriors human. And without these ties, the Carcharodons fight with a purity that borders on terrifying, unclouded by politics, unbothered by pride, untouched by the grand delusions that consume the Imperium. They do not fight for glory. They do not fight for recognition. They fight because the void molded them into instruments of necessary brutality. But this wandering life comes with a cost, a deep, gnawing curse etched into their identity. For when a warrior spends centuries drifting through emptiness, something changes. Something breaks. Something inside them begins to echo with a hunger that even they cannot fully control. The Carcharodons do not just arrive from the dark, they bring it with them. And as their legend grew, so did the whispers. What are they becoming out there, alone in the void? What did they hear in the silence? And who did they obey, if anyone at all? Keep watching, because before this story ends, you'll learn the answer, an answer that reshapes everything the Imperium believes about loyalty, purpose, and the true nature of the Carcharodons. The truth is, even they cannot answer that question. Their origins are a riddle the Imperium pretends to understand but secretly fears. Records vanish. Archives contradict themselves. Historians argue over fragments of forgotten campaigns that end abruptly, as if someone deliberately erased their trail. And yet, across millennia, one pattern remains constant. Wherever the Carcharodons appear, something ancient stirs in the collective memory of those who witness them. A strange familiarity. A faint echo of a legacy once known, then buried. Whispers spread through Imperial scholars like a fever, that the Carcharodons are remnants of a legion long thought lost. That their discipline, their silence, their brutal efficiency resembles warriors from an age of betrayal and fire. An age the Imperium refuses to revisit. Some claim they feel the shadow of a forgotten Primarch in the cold precision of the Carcharodons' movements. Others sense the haunted remnants of a legion that never fully broke, but never returned home either. But the Carcharodons do not speak of their past because they do not look backward. Their history is a corpse they left behind, and the curse of that severed identity follows them into every battle. Without a home world, without a recorded culture, they anchor themselves only to war. Their identity is not built on memory, it is built on endurance. Every Carcharodon is shaped through a ritualistic transformation far harsher than that of any other Astartes. They are forged in blood trials, pitted against monstrous predators dragged from the black edges of uncharted space. They are taught to fight in silence, to strike without hesitation, and to kill without the burden of emotion. Their training strips away everything except the instincts of an apex hunter. Compassion becomes a distraction, mercy becomes a weakness, and hesitation becomes a death sentence. Yet beneath their controlled savagery lies a paradox that defines their curse. The Carcharodons are not mindless berserkers. Their brutality is precise, calculated, surgical. They kill with intention, not frenzy. They study their prey before tearing it apart. They approach war as an art form, one crafted from centuries of isolation and honed by battles fought in places even the Imperium refuses to acknowledge. Their discipline is almost unnatural, almost inhuman. It is said that when a Carcharodon stares at an enemy, it feels less like being targeted by a soldier and more like being observed by something primal, something that has already mapped out the exact second your life will end. And this gaze, cold and predatory, reveals the true weight of their curse. They have become creatures perfectly adapted to an existence humanity should never have allowed. In their silence and their violence lies a truth they cannot escape. They are protectors forged from the very horrors they fight. They are humanity's shield, sculpted into the shape of its nightmares. And as the centuries unfold, the Imperium grows increasingly unsure whether the Carcharodons still serve as guardians, or if they have become a force apart, guided not by duty but by instinct older than their recorded existence. Because every time they return from the outer dark, they seem a little more changed. A little less human, a little more connected to whatever ancient purpose carved them into being. And as their history continues to dissolve into myth, one fear remains unspoken among Imperial commanders. If the Carcharodons ever remember who they once were, what will they become? For the Carcharodons, the curse is not merely the loss of their past or the burden of endless exile. It is something far deeper, far more intimate, something woven into their very biology. Beneath their discipline, beneath their silent focus, beneath the cold precision with which they carve through the enemies of mankind, there is a hunger. A quiet, simmering violence that pulses through their veins like a second heartbeat. Most Astartes know anger, most understand fury, but the Carcharodons feel something different, something closer to instinct than emotion. When battle begins, something buried inside them awakens. Their vision sharpens. Their movements grow fluid, almost animalistic. They become faster, more lethal, more relentless than even veteran commanders expect. And when the killing starts, they enter a state not of rage, but of predatory clarity. They are not blinded by bloodlust. They are guided by it. And this is the core of their curse. They do not just fight their enemies. They hunt them. In battle, the Carcharodons move as if they are born for the kill. They track foes by sound, by heat, by scent, abilities that should not exist in a warrior shaped purely by genetic enhancement. There are reports, whispered reluctantly by traumatized survivors, of Carcharodons tearing through darkness without lights, navigating smoke and chaos as though the battlefield itself were speaking to them. Some say this predatory nature is a mutation. Others insist it is a forgotten design from the Emperor's earliest, most experimental creations. A rare few dare to believe the rumors, that the Carcharodon's bloodline descends from a primarch whose own nature leaned toward the monstrous. Whatever the truth, the hunger is real. It grows stronger with every battle. It sharpens with every kill. It becomes harder to cage with every year of silence in the outer dark. The Carcharodons train endlessly not to become stronger, but to restrain themselves. Every ritual, every practice, every meditative exercise carved into their brutal lifestyle exists for one purpose: to contain the thing inside them that wants to slip free. Because they know that if their discipline ever falters, even for a moment, their curse could consume everything around them, friend and foe alike. And perhaps the most terrifying part: they accept this nature. They do not fear becoming monsters. They fear losing control of the monster. This restraint is what separates them from the corrupted. They are not berserkers. They are not possessed. They are not mad. They are predators with leashes made of iron wool, and every battle threatens to snap those chains. When they descend on a world in need, commanders breathe with both relief and dread. Relief, because the Carcharodons will annihilate anything that threatens humanity. Dread, because the same warriors who cleanse the planet might just as easily turn their cold, animal eyes toward anyone who interferes with their methods. The Imperium calls them unpredictable. The Carcharodons call it survival. And the galaxy calls it a curse. But the hunger inside them is not the end of their suffering. It is only the beginning. To understand the Carcharodons, you must witness the storm they bring with them. Not through imagery or spectacle, but through the way their presence changes the tone of a battlefield. When the Imperium calls for help, most chapters send warriors who announce themselves with banners, vox calls, and righteous declarations. The Carcharodons announce themselves only through silence, and then through the sudden collapse of everything standing against them. Their arrival is not glorious. It is catastrophic. When they descend upon a war-torn world, those defending the last scraps of civilization feel a shift, a tightening of the air, a sense that something predatory has entered their space. The Carcharodons never land in formation, never march with ceremonial precision. They hit the ground like falling blades, scattered intentionally, each warrior carving his own path of slaughter toward the heart of the enemy. They are not there to reinforce, they are there to consume the threat entirely. And this method reveals the truth about them. The Carcharodons wage war as though it is an extension of their own biology. They adapt instantly. They move through enemy lines like shadows trimmed with steel. Their strikes are so fast and decisive that even other Astartes struggle to comprehend the rhythm of their assault. To fight beside them is to witness killers who were not merely trained, they were designed for war. Imperial Guard commanders often report that the first sign of a Carcharodon attack is silence. No gunfire, no shouting, just enemies vanishing from Vox readings, disappearing into a trail of shredded flesh and broken armor as though dragged beneath unseen waves. The enemies of the Imperium experience something far worse. To face a Carcharodon is to confront inevitability. They are relentless. They do not shout challenges or roar fury. They simply advance. Every blow they strike feels cold and deliberate, as if the act of killing is an instinct, not a decision. Their brutality is not chaotic, it is methodical, calculated, precise, and it leaves a psychological wound on survivors deeper than any physical scar. Those who live long enough to speak of it often describe the same sensation. The feeling of being stalked, not by a soldier, but by something ancient and hungry. And yet, despite the terror they inspire, the Carcharodons serve humanity. They answer distress calls without question. They purge heresy without hesitation. They save worlds that would have fallen without their intervention. But their loyalty is as chilling as their wrath, because they never explain themselves, never linger, never hold counsel. They destroy what must be destroyed, and then they vanish, leaving nothing but silence and uneasy gratitude. Even the Imperium's own forces are often unsure whether the Carcharodons arrived as saviors or executioners. Their methods push the boundaries of acceptable brutality. Their judgments are final. They do not negotiate, they do not tolerate resistance, and they do not care for political consequences. They believe only in the purity of eliminating threats completely. And every time they are unleashed, their curse grows stronger. Every kill awakens the predator inside them. Every war pushes them further from humanity. Every victory feeds the hunger that their iron discipline barely restrains. The Imperium relies on them, but fears the day it might have to rely against them. Because if the Carcharodons ever choose to unleash their wrath on those they claim to protect, nothing, absolutely nothing, could stand in their way. For most of the Imperium, mercy is rare. For the Carcharodons, it is almost non-existent, but not because they delight in slaughter, nor because they seek cruelty. Their mercy is rare because it is dangerous. They know that every life they spare could be one more loose thread in a galaxy already fraying apart. Their curse has taught them a brutal lesson. Unchecked compassion can destroy worlds just as easily as unchecked violence. When the Carcharodons intervene in a war, they do so with a single guiding principle. Preserve only what deserves survival. This sounds simple, until you realize what it means in practice. To them, survival is not a right. It's not something earned by pleading or alliances or the promise of future loyalty. To the Carcharodons, survival is a test. A silent evaluation. They judge humans the same way they judge enemies, by observing their will, their resolve, and their purity of purpose. If a group fights desperately to protect their world, the Carcharodons acknowledge it. If a regiment holds its line despite impossible odds, the Carcharodons respect it. If a village defends its last child with nothing but knives and broken tools, the Carcharodons see potential in them. But if they find weakness, if they detect cowardice, corruption, or complacency, the Carcharodons become executioners. Their curse has shaped a worldview brutally simple. Humanity survives only through strength, discipline, and sacrifice. Anything else is a vulnerability the galaxy will tear apart. This makes their brand of mercy feel colder than death. There are countless worlds where the Carcharodons arrived too late to save everyone, but early enough to decide who deserved to remain. They have purged entire populations not because they were enemies, but because they were judged incapable of resisting the darkness that awaited them. Some Imperial commanders called these actions monstrous. Others called them necessary. But all agreed on one thing: the Carcharodons do not hesitate. To hesitate is to die. To pity is to invite corruption. To allow weakness is to betray humanity. And yet, beneath this brutal philosophy lies an uncomfortable truth. The Carcharodons themselves do not know whether their mercy comes from wisdom, or from the monster inside them that wants to control every fate it touches. Their silence feeds the fear. They never explain their choices, never justify their actions. They leave the Imperium wondering whether their decisions arise from calculated logic, or from the growing hunger that shapes their instincts. This ambiguity gives rise to a haunting question in the minds of those who study them. If the Carcharodons judge others by strength alone, who, exactly, will judge them? Because as the centuries stretch on, their criteria become harsher. Their patience grows thinner. Their tolerance for weakness tightens like a noose. And every time they choose extermination over salvation, the line between protector and predator blurs just a little more. The Imperium praises them for saving countless worlds, but fears the day their idea of worthy no longer includes mankind itself. And if that day comes, the galaxy will face something far worse than extinction. It will face the cold, merciless justice of warriors who no longer distinguish prey from people. For most space marines, identity is built from ritual, oaths, heraldry, battle canticles, and traditions passed down through generations. These rituals form the backbone of a chapter's culture. They give meaning to sacrifice and purpose to duty. But the Carcharodons do not possess such luxuries. Their past is erased. Their homeworld is unknown. Their traditions are fragmented echoes from a history buried beyond retrieval. And yet, they endure. The secret lies in the strange, unsettling rituals they carry with them, rituals older than the Imperium's records, rituals that feel more like instinct than memory. Each Carcharodon performs them not because they were taught, but because something deep within urges them to. These are not ceremonies of honor. They are not celebrations of victory. They are survival mechanisms, anchors, the thin threads that keep their psyche from dissolving into the hunger that gnaws at their core. One such ritual begins after every major battle. While other chapters gather their fallen for reverent prayer or carefully recorded remembrance, the Carcharodons perform their rites in total silence. They stand among the corpses, both enemy and ally, motionless, as if listening for something only they can hear. Survivors watching from afar often describe the same eerie sensation, that the Carcharodons are not mourning their dead, but measuring them, weighing them, assessing whether the battle was fought with enough discipline to restrain their inner monster. Then, without words, without ceremony, they move on. Another ritual emerges during long voyages through the outer dark. Their ships, ancient, cold, and echoing with forgotten machinery, fall into a rhythmic cycle of darkness and red emergency glow. During these cycles, the Carcharodons isolate themselves in meditation chambers lined with symbols that predate Imperial script. They kneel in silence, breathing slowly, forcing their minds into stillness. These meditations are not spiritual. They are not philosophical. They are chains, mental restraints forged to suppress the instinctual violence rising through their thoughts. Without these meditations, some say the hunger would overtake them completely. The most mysterious ritual, however, is their practice of the marking. When a Carcharodon identifies a warrior, ally or enemy, who embodies exceptional strength or resolve, he carves a symbol into his armor. These marks accumulate over centuries, tracing the warrior's encounters like a map of silent judgments. Some marks honor those who impressed them. Others signify enemies who fought with dignity. And some represent individuals they believe deserved to live, even if fate denied them. These marks are the closest thing the Carcharodons have to memories. Each one is a silent reminder that they are not merely beasts. They can still recognize worth. They can still acknowledge resilience. They can still see the humanity they have lost. But as their numbers grow, so does an unsettling reality. The younger Carcharodons make fewer marks. Their discipline runs thinner. Their rituals hold less sway. Their hunger grows stronger. It is as if the newer generations, shaped entirely in void-born isolation, are drifting even farther from the faint human echoes that their ancestors preserved. Their rituals remain the only barrier between the Carcharodons and the complete dissolution of their identity. Without these strange traditions, their curse would consume them entirely, mind, body, and purpose. And so the galaxy watches them with wary respect, knowing that every ritual performed is a battle against the darkness inside them. But there is one ritual they never reveal. One so old, so secret, so deeply embedded in their curse that even Imperial scholars dare not speculate. Because this ritual, whispered only in legends, might be the key to their origin. And the reason they were never meant to return from the void at all. Across the centuries, whispers have circulated among scholars, inquisitors, and those rare few who have stood close enough to the Carcharodons to sense the weight they carry. Most of their rituals are visible, silent meditations, battle rites, the marking of armor. But there exists one ritual that is never spoken of. One so ancient, so deeply embedded in their identity, that it feels less like a tradition, and more like a wound they reopen to stop it from festering. This ritual is known only through fragments of forbidden texts and terrified testimonies from those who glimpsed it by accident. The Imperium calls it the ritual of remembrance. The Carcharodons never call it anything at all. And perhaps that silence is what makes it so terrifying. The ritual occurs rarely, sometimes once in a century, sometimes once in a millennium. It is performed only when a Carcharodon falls in battle after showing exceptional discipline, restraint, or clarity, traits that hint at the humanity they struggle to preserve. When such a warrior dies, his brothers gather around him in complete stillness. Not to honor him, not to mourn him, but to reclaim something from him. Those who have seen the ritual describe a chilling sight. The surviving Carcharodons kneel beside their fallen, lay their armored hands over his chest, and press their helms against his. No words, no chants, no prayer, only a profound, crushing silence. At that moment, the surviving brothers share in something indescribable, a fragment of memory that the dead carried. A piece of identity he fought to maintain. A faint echo of emotion or consciousness so rare among them that it must be preserved in some form. But they do not keep it for themselves. They do not cling to it. They do not let it linger. They bury it. The ritual is an exchange. The dead share a memory, and the living seal it away. Not to remember, but to ensure no one else ever will. In that moment, a truth becomes clear. The Carcharodons fear their past. They fear what lies in the memories of their ancestors. They fear what would happen if those memories resurfaced, what they might unleash, what they might reveal, what they might awaken. Their silence is not discipline. It is protection. Their amnesia is not natural. It is intentional. Their curse is not a burden. It is a choice. Because somewhere in their forgotten origins lies a truth darker than the void they call home. A truth that could fracture their restraint, shatter their rituals, and tear the Imperium apart. And so they bury every trace of it, memory by memory, life by life, ensuring that no Carcharodon ever recalls who they once were. But this ritual carries a cost. Every time they bury a memory, they bury a piece of themselves. Their humanity fades. Their echo of culture erodes. Their identity becomes thinner, more fragile, more dependent on instinct rather than history. They keep forgetting. They keep erasing. They keep drowning their past in silence. And the galaxy cannot help but wonder. What origin is so horrifying that the Carcharodons themselves refuse to remember it? And what would happen if even one of them broke the ritual and chose to remember? Because the truth buried deep within their forgotten legacy is clawing at the edges of their consciousness. And sooner or later, something buried that long always finds a way back to the surface. For the Carcharodons, immortality is both a gift and a curse. Their gene seed grants them strength far beyond any ordinary human. Their armor, their weapons, their bodies, they endure in ways that defy natural law. Time bends differently for them, leaving them unscarred by age but etched with the weight of every battle they survive. Every planet they cleanse, every enemy they eradicate, every life they extinguish leaves an imprint, not on their flesh but on their mind and soul. They do not speak of the mental toll. They do not write histories. They do not cry in the dark. Yet the price is undeniable. Centuries of fighting strip away not just innocence, but comprehension itself. Memories of friends, of victories, even of small, fleeting joys vanish like smoke in the vacuum. The only constants are violence, duty, and the unrelenting hunger that lurks within them. And this hunger is clever. It adapts. It waits. It watches. It feeds on isolation, grows stronger in silence, and whispers with every heartbeat that they are predators, not men. The Carcharodons fight to hold it back, but the effort is eternal. Every battle becomes not just a fight against enemies, but a fight against themselves. Some warriors break under the strain. Some disappear into madness. Others accept the endless war as the only reality, surrendering to it entirely. The few who endure the longest are the ones most feared, not by the Imperium, not by the enemies of mankind, but by themselves. They know what they are capable of if they lose control, and they carry that knowledge like a shadow across centuries. And yet, paradoxically, this eternal struggle is what defines their existence. Without the endless war, without the unyielding hunger, without the curse that shapes every thought and action, they would have nothing to anchor them to purpose. They are alive only to fight. Alive only to hunt. Alive only to survive as a weapon of humanity's last defense. This is the cruel truth of the Carcharodons. Their immortality is not freedom. It is a chain forged from every kill, every wound, every star system cleansed. Their strength comes with an inescapable cost, a cost paid in solitude, in forgetting, and in the slow erosion of the soul. The galaxy sees warriors who seem invincible. It calls them legends. It whispers their names with awe and fear. But the Carcharodons themselves know the hidden truth, that their endless life is a crucible designed not for glory, but for endurance. That survival is punishment. That every victory is another link in the chain of their curse. And as the centuries stretch on, the question looms ever larger. How long can a warrior fight, live, and endure, before the curse finally consumes him entirely? Because every victory, every battle survived, every memory buried, brings them one step closer to the edge of something irreversible. The answer, as the Carcharodons themselves know, is both simple and terrifying. The curse is eternal, and yet it is also inevitable. No amount of discipline, no ritual, no meditation, no silent reflection can erase what has been etched into their very essence. They are born predators, shaped by isolation, refined by war, and bound by the hunger that no victory can ever fully satisfy. And yet, even in this grim inevitability, they serve. The galaxy survives because they do. Worlds that would have fallen to xenos, heresy, and chaos remain standing because these silent hunters descend from the void and deliver final judgment. The Imperium calls it salvation. The galaxy calls it terror. The Carcharodons call it life. But in the quiet moments between campaigns, when the stars themselves seem still, they are reminded of the truth they cannot escape. Every battle fought, every life extinguished, every fragment of memory buried carries a price, a piece of themselves lost forever. They are strangers to their own souls, wandering endlessly through darkness, protecting a humanity that will never truly know them, nor understand the full measure of their sacrifice. And in that understanding lies the cruelest irony of all. The galaxy depends on them, yet fears them. It praises them, yet isolates them. It survives because of them, yet they will never know peace. Their curse is both their gift and their punishment, their purpose and their doom. It is the shadow that clings to their armor, the silence that follows their footsteps, the hunger that drives every strike. The Carcharodons endure because they must. They endure because they are bound by something older and deeper than duty or loyalty. They endure because the galaxy requires it. And they endure because, in the end, their curse defines not just what they do, but what they are. The eternal predators of humanity, the guardians who will never rest, the warriors who are feared, respected, and misunderstood in equal measure. So the next time you hear of the Carcharodons, remember this: they are more than soldiers. They are more than legends. They are the shadow of humanity's own survival, forged in blood, sustained by hunger, and cursed to walk forever in the void between stars. And perhaps, one day, you will wonder, if such warriors can endure eternity, then what hope remains for those who cannot? Because their fate is not a story that ends. It is a warning, a whisper from the void, a reminder that some curses are eternal, and some warriors are unstoppable.